Okay, the camera's a little crooked, but that is fine because our presentation is on indirect speech, which is also called subjunctive 1 in English or conjunctive 1 in German. So, what is indirect speech? So, I think a big part in understanding German grammar is also to understand like how we use it in our language in English. And so indirect speech is in simpler terms things have people have said that's being reproduced in another conversation. So basically, their subjunctive 1 is kind of like a third person narration of a conversation that happened in earlier times. Of course, there is subjunctive 2 or conjunctive 2, which basically is either conditional or commanding in like a conversation. But for now, we're just going to be focusing on the first one. So basically, a third person point of view from our earlier conversation. So also, in understanding something in German, I think it's important to understand like when we would use this if we've lived in Germany. So in English terms, it's important to relate this back into like a German daily life. So basically, indirect speech is commonly used in newspaper articles where a reporter or someone who's writing about something else someone did is basically reiterating a conversation that previously happened. So let's say Trump said, "Ich bin ein guter Präsident. Du musst mir vertrauen." So basically saying, I'm a good president, you must trust me. So going back to think about recent times, just think about what Trump has been saying and doing. So basically, a reporter for CNN might say, to repeat the conversation to viewers, that Trump sagte, sei eine gute Präsident und wir müssen ihr vertrauen. So they're basically changing the point of view of the conversation to fit into a narration of a newspaper article to where they are basically quoting Trump, but in a president's or past tense conversation. So now to explain this in German. Konjunktiv sind Dinge, die Leute haben gesagt und die reproduziert haben. Konjunktiv wird in der Nachrichten gesehen und wann die Leute müssen ein frühes Gespräch über gesprochen. So conjugating some subjunctive 1. It's important to note that it's very similar to established intent conjugation, except for like probably er, sie, and ist, and ihr. This is because many verbs in subjunctive 1 are identical to verbs in the ordinary present tense, and this excludes sign, which we will present on the next slide. So basically, conjugating ich is always ich mache, ich komme, ich habe, so I at the end. And then du is a little different. Du macht ist, ist, kommst, habest. So est at the end. Sie and ist is mache, sehe, kommen, haben. So you're adding e at the end, which is a little different from normal conjugation because the conversation for sie and ist is just like ish. And so to wir, which is normally normal, machen, sehen, kommen, haben, en at the end. Ihr is machet, sehet, kommet, and habet, et at the end, which is different. And sie is machen, sehen, kommen, haben, which is like normal established 10-10 conjugation. So sign conjugation. The one exception to indirect speech is sign. So most verbs are identical whether they're strong or weak, but this is the one exception. In most cases, it's not the verb being focused on in the earlier conversation that was proposed by someone else earlier, so this is why it's different. So ich, it's sei, du, is seist, sie, and ist, is sei, wir, it's seien, ihr, it's seiet, and sie, is seien. So basically the same conjugation, but this time we're not using bin and stuff of that manner, so we're using actually sign as the conjugation. So we'll start with some examples for beginners so we can get the gist of what's happening, and then later when we do the grammar quiz, we'll be able to go on to harder challenges by using the same exact rules. So number 1, ich habe viel Geld. Number 2, sah nicht unheimlich. Number 3, Annika sagt, sie habe keine Ahnung, wer Luca ist. Number 4, wir werden zusammen zur Schule gehen. Number 5, sie wollen nicht werden genommen. And number 6, ihr liebt Erika, aber es wird nicht sagen. So you can pause the video and basically go through these examples using the PDF PowerPoint and try to use the conjugation from earlier to conjugate these sentences. And you would start off the sentences by saying, let's say, Isla said, or Trump said, or Nassim said. Somebody said this, and put these examples in quotations to make sure it resembles a conversation that happened earlier. So you pause the video, and then you can go ahead and go through these examples using the PDF, and the next slide is the answers. So the answers to the examples. Number one is Sie sagt, ich habe viel Geld. Nothing changes because nothing changes from the established tense conjugation between subjunctive 1 and normal present tense verbs. Number two, Nassim sagt, erzählst nicht unheimlich. So we're changing the se to sayest because and erzählen ist the same as ish conjugation in subjunctive 1. Erika sagt, Annika sage, sie habe keine Ahnung, wer Logat sei. So we're basically changing the sage to subjunctive form by adding e at the end, and then ist would change to sei conjugation. This is one of the exclusions to ordinary present tense verbs, so we're using sei because of the conjugation table. Number four, Robert und Trappitz sagen, wir werden zusammen zur Schule gehen. Basically, nothing in this sentence is changing because wir is the same in both conjugations. Number five, seine Eltern sagte, sie wollet nicht werdet genommen. So what is changing is all three verbs in the sentence, wollet, werdet, and genommen. Because these verbs are in subjunctive and we are reiterating a conversation that happened earlier, we basically have to add et to ear verbs at the end. And then number six, Luca sagt, liebe Erika, aber es werde nicht sagen. So similar to number two and number three, we're basically just adding an e at the end, even though it may seem a little weird to conjugate ish and er as the same, because we are saying conversation that happened earlier and we're doing a third person point of view of the conversation, just like a reporter would do. We have to conjugate it that way. So this is really long, so you might want to pause and read it on the PDF file, but this is basically a real life German example of an interview that happened between a reporter and a woman named Katharina Reiche. So basically, she's a renowned person in Germany. They're talking about her having a baby, getting to the hospital and stuff. And so basically, if you read and pause the conversation, it is in normal present tense, but aber eine deutsche Reporterwirt sagte, die Bild-Zeitung fragte, ob sie keine Angst habe, dass der Wahlkampfstress ihr oder ihrem ungeborenen Kind schade. Katharina Reiche antwortete, nein, sie habe eine robuste Constitution. Stehe unter ständiger ärztlicher Betreuung. Die Notasche fürs Krankenhaus der Arbeit. Gefragt, was es denn werde, antwortete Frau Reiche, dass es ein Mädchen werde. Sie haben auch schon einen Namen, aber der werde nicht vertrauten. So basically the reporter went in, and was basically reiterating all the lines in between the reporter and basically saying what Katharina would say, but just reiterating the conversation that happened earlier, so it's past tense. And I know it seems repetitive, but this is basically how you have to do it. And remember every time that subjunctive is indirect speech. So indirect speech is not a direct conversation between two people. It's actually a conversation that happened earlier between two other people. It might be you and another person, or you and another person, and it's repetitive. But we have to remember that subjunctive 1 also turns to subjunctive 2, which is a command to someone or a conditional term to someone that happened earlier. So it's important to get this down or to understand other parts of indirect speech. And so this is just a cartoon of basically saying a conditional terms in German, which can also relate to subjunctive 1. So a bird says to another bird, did you ever wonder if trees were made of wood, could we still sit here? But wood is spelled W-O-U-D-U-L-D. And then the other bird says, bro, that's profound, because they're using wood as a conditional term. So werde, so you'll see in subjunctive 2 that werde is the preposition that goes before all the verbs in the sentence. So from here on, we're moving forward to conditional and commanding terms. And so really nailing this down and understanding that it's basically two other people talking to each other in the past, it's easy to understand now that German is a lot like English, and when we are doing parts of speech, but in English we don't have something like this, we would just say, oh, he said that he is going to the market. But in German, you completely have to change the order and organization of the sentence in order to like highlight and exemplify that this conversation happened in the past and the action in the sentence happened in the past and not in the present or in the future. And so, going back to the front of the presentation, indirect speech subjective 1 is one of the main cores of understanding all parts of speech in German. And it's important to know that a lot of these, I think it's important to know that we have to understand these in English first, and that's what we struggle with because we know our language, so we often don't focus on the grammar. But it's important to know what these things are in English in order to truly understand how we would use it in daily German life, because often in conversation in German, they cut out a lot of the grammatical rules that we're learning now and talk in slang or like in relaxed mode German. As we do in English, we don't talk proper all the time, which is important to note too. And so basically, nailing these stuff down and knowing how to talk properly will really help us in the future if we ever decide to visit Germany or something like that. At least we'll know. They might get a giggle out of it or two, but at least we'll know that we're talking formally and really getting it down and make sure we aren't confusing people, especially if it has to do with past, present, and future. And so that is our presentation on indirect speech.